and welcome you to the first game of the series. As you said, it is RecoN spawning in on the south side as the Ottomans here on regions. Their opponent, TheMista. Both of them fighting to get into the next stage of the tournament.
Yeah, and from the messages that I got from Pesty, this is a win and you're in. If you take this series, you will be able to get that coveted 8th spot of the playoffs, so desperately sought after by all of these players. Now, taking a look at regions, in the middle you have those 3 gold mines that are obviously the hot spot, something that you need to go for. You only have 2 safe gold mines that are smaller. Obviously, on the left-hand side of regions, or the western side, you have some nice deer patches that can help you out over there on the eastern side. Some berry patches that could be fruitful for you, pun very much intended. Now, for Mista, he's English. He doesn't care about any of those. More so about that gold in the middle. It's all about regions. Really good map for the English in order to create, it's kind of like a pseudo choke point because of that gold mine and just spamming units right down the middle of the map.
So the first thing people learn when they play Ottomans is the build order where you open up with a military school. The second thing you learn is you don't go that build against the English. Yet here we are with that spear. It's not being rallied out to the English, of course, so I do wonder if we will see something that Kiljardi did earlier today, which is actually using those spear to do a deer push.
Yeah, I mean, that's that's an option. I mean, that deer is kind of in a different area code, but maybe if they have enough spearman micro, he would be able to push them back in. Now, Mista on the other side, just because RecoN is going with the military school, will be getting the spearman to pop out. Mista, I think, has more of a window for that early feudal aggression if he chooses to go with Council Hall, because he's going to be able to get to feudal quicker than the Ottomans will, because they took the time to get that stone and to get that wood. So I'm curious to see, as this game goes into feudal, how that actually translates.
Damn it. It's gonna be the Council Hall. Just there, I mean, just being dropped down. It's a little bit unfortunate for Mista, though. I mean, RecoN's gold here is super safe in the back. However, it's going to be a little bit difficult to be able to contest this stone outcropping, because it is very far forward and very far open. I do think in this matchup, though, as the English, I'm pretty sure you want to be going for a second town center. It feels nice, it feels solid.
Yeah, I mean, there is a potential to do that. Maybe not necessarily off the bat, but there is a potential to go second town center, just because we talk about the economic prowess of each individual civilization, right? For the Ottomans, it's not necessarily going for another town center. It's the fact that some of your military production is free, the foreign military schools. You think about it more in an economic sense. The English don't really have that. They're one of the few civs that don't really have that option. So, or something like Holy Roman Empire that has prelates, you know, that kind of external, exogenous kind of economic production. So they have to go with that second town center. So English doing that, not a bad idea. However, probably that early aggression is more important. Then you can put that town center behind it if you need to. I would rather spend that wood on some longbowmen fresh out the gate.
For sure. Put some very early pressure. We do see Mista. He's doing the thing that we kind of expected RecoN to be doing, which is going for a dare push. And he is a couple of steps ahead of both me and RecoN, because he's killing those dares. And be damned with that dare push.
Yeah, TheMista is one of those guys, and I know we've all casted games of Mista. We've all watched games of Mista. Hopefully, we haven't had the unfortunate experience of playing against him, but he plays chess where all of us play checkers. You know, he knew that deer push was going to happen, and he pulled a scout there anyway.
Yep. And well, RecoN is just like, gosh, darn it. Well, at least I get 3. At least I get 3 deer. Oh, wait, never mind. There's some longbows coming. Never mind.
Yeah, those longbowmen are going to make short work of the spear. Now, take a look at RecoN's macro right now. This is typical Ottoman macro at this point. You have 9 villagers on wood to try to get all of those military buildings, and I think that's what he's going to attempt to do. Goes for double broadaxe as well. Bad spawn out of that twin minaret. He got that one berry bush in that corner that creates a problem.
So, the third thing people learn when they play the Ottomans is you should place your twin minaret madrasa here. Place it so it's really safe, it's really hard to actually be punished by this. And this is the reason why. There are supposed to be berries here that you're so safe and you should be able to take. And then the English just ruin your day.
Look at this for RecoN. How frustrating is this? You're trying to get your wood. You're trying to get all of the buildings that you need. He does have a stable down, so he'll be able to make some Sipahi. He has 2 Sipahi currently in queue. But Mista already with that barracks and queuing spearman. He already has 1 spearman in there. Not necessarily about taking down villagers, but he is creating a lot of idle time, putting those Ottoman villagers under duress. He does see that one villager that is injured, and he is right in front.
I mean, I'm annoyed. I'm annoyed because of RecoN is annoyed. It is so frustrating to play against.
Yeah, I mean, when you're the Ottomans, you're like, man, can I just get my wood so I can get buildings, please? Like, and then I'll fight you, I promise. But just like later. So he has to change wood lines all the way here to the western side. I would argue this western wood line is more unsafe because it's not near that town center. It's not near the mechanical blockages, which is the twin minaret, and the lumber camp, which is a little bit forward. So even though Mista's looking for an area, he's got to know that the wood line is going to be moved over to the western side, and then he'll start to bring his forces over. And the one thing for the Mista and for all English players that we think about is, where's that tower going? I need a tower right in front of his face.
Yep. I mean, just tower here, right? If you tower in range, so that, I mean, you can do really ballsy tower here. Actually, you can tower so far forward that the entire landmark, the twin minaret madrasa, is just nullified. You can do that as the English. And
oh, absolutely. If you put an outpost in the right spot and against a little bit too far to the point where the town center can't reach, there's absolutely a sweet spot for that. I have no doubt. Now, RecoN is still going into Sipahi. He still has the spearmen from the military school, so he's got about 3 spearmen, 5 Sipahi on the field, trying to take down some English reinforcements. Something really good to do against the English, because usually they're coming in one at a time. The issue is, it took him enough time to change his wood line, get the wood, get an archery range, and actually get some archers doing a good job taking down one longbowman, and now the English mass needs to turn around to make sure those Sipahi don't take down anything else. Mista might want to escort those longbowmen with a spearman every time they go down.
And we see as a response to the Sipahi being spotted, a tower will be dropped for Mista very defensively behind all of this, right? He's kind of just chilling, doing his farm transition, making a couple of units, just living the Farmville life.
Oh, this is great. I mean, this is Mista IRL too. We're farming outside, we're farming inside. Don't matter. But now longbowmen are going to see that wood line start to come up again on the eastern side. Now he has enough longbowmen where he can do some good vill picks. And military count now starting to even out for both of these players, 18 to 17.
And one of the big issues that RecoN has right now, we talked about it earlier, right? It's like, okay, the English wants to go for the 2 town center because that's where they get their economic bonus for. It's like, what's their strong points? The Ottomans get that eco bonus by going military schools, and I don't see a lot of them.
No, I mean, there's only one. He hasn't necessarily... He's been so consumed with trying to get a stable wood line, he hasn't been able to do things like he doesn't have the luxury to take a couple villagers and put them on stone. One, because that stone is very forward, so it's probably a no-go anyway. But even if that stone was in the back, I don't think he would have had the luxury to do that, which makes it pretty difficult.
He has got a stable wood line.
That's quite enough. You could zoom out.
Okay.
Now, Mista, take a look at his macro. Up there on the upper right-hand part of the screen, he's got about 800 food, about 400 gold. He's got a decent amount of villagers on gold. What does this mean? We're going to see some Castle Age out of the Mista. He did his little bit of Feudal Age aggression, which is fantastic. You know, he picked off one villager. He created a lot of idle time. He made sure that Ottoman snowball didn't turn into an avalanche in Feudal Age, which it has the propensity to do. So now he's going to be able to back up just a little bit, slow down on the military production, and then go up with that second town center, which is the King's Palace.
Yeah, it's going to take a little bit of time, but it will get there shortly. I think RecoN will be joining as well in a bit. It's going to be really hard. At least he's going to try. He's still macroing for it as well. He's going to get up some walls here. He's going to be able to move forward and get at least a little bit of stone to get some of those military schools.
Oh, absolutely. Now that he has the ability to, now that he has some room to actually take a breath, he's going to be able to get some of that stone. Now, with RecoN, he does have a decent amount of villagers on gold, more than the Ottomans usually do at this part of the game. Usually they won't have 5 or 6 unless they're thinking about some kind of castle age. Do want to say Pilsen with the rate of 77. Thank you. Welcome, Pilsen viewers, to EGCTV2, where we are watching the last series of the Swiss stage of Call to Arms RecoN versus TheMista. King's Palace for Mista will be coming up in just a few seconds. And I predict some Iron Chad men-at-arms. Cow, what do you think?
Chad at arms.
Yeah. Yep. I said that, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. All right. Men-at-arms are going to be coming out crossbowmen, actually. Going to be coming out for TheMista as well out of that council hall. Spearmen are going to be able to help, especially against the Sipahi, right? And just being able to pump out those men-at-arms once they are of the Castle Age variety. We talked about this a little bit before the game started. For the Ottomans in Feudal, not much options to deal with men-at-arms. They don't have that heavy-hitting DPS unit. They usually just go by sheer mass.
Do you feel like one of the things here, though, for Mista doesn't have enough production buildings? I mean, obviously RecoN, right? One of the benefits of the Ottomans is their production buildings only cost 100 wood. So they can really easily do a switch up, right? If like, okay, I've made 3 archer ranges and I've made 2 stables, and it's like, oh no, I need to do a switch up into man-at-arms or something. They can do that on a whim really, really easily.
Yeah, they can. I mean, they do have the ability to change into different units. That's a very good point. It just they just don't have the units available to them right now, right? And that's what RecoN's trying to rectify. You know, he's trying to get that 1200 food to go up. And what's nice about the Ottomans, it creates a little bit of a better transition as you're going through ages, because for other civilizations, they have to stop making units, right? Because they need to save resources. The Ottomans never stop making units. They're always in school studying hard. So you're able to kind of buffer yourself just a little bit if Mista has the ability to get a men-at-arms mass and bring it over here. At least there will be some units back home in order to deal with it.
Always, always, always. I mean, if you're very unlucky, you can actually cancel the military schools producing anything. Don't do that.
Right, that doesn't seem like a wise idea, but RecoN is going to be going up with the MIA at about 50% completion. Shout out to Lash. Thank you for the raid. Party of 70. Hey, great series against Demo. We actually casted that one, so if Lash viewers are interested in watching the bird's eye perspective, you could watch the VOD. And shout out to Lash. His name is also Tim, so we are best friends.
Oh. Yeah, I've yet to meet any other cows. I don't know. It's kind of rare to meet anyone that's named Cow IRL, I guess. But hey, good thing you guys are on a first name basis. Very, very important. Now, RecoN has gone up to the next stage here. MIA available and Mangonel is in production. It's going to be very tough now for Mista. He's not going too heavily into the ranged department, but still a couple of ranged units that can be taken out. The second TC has been going a while with that King's Palace now for the Mista as well, so he's quite happy in terms of that. And well, we have more and more military schools being produced there as well.
You know what's really frustrating for RecoN too? I mean, we talked about it in the beginning about, you know, the longbowman just being a thorn in the side, but RecoN has consistently used a decent amount of his APN on Sipahi around the English base and hasn't been able to get anywhere with them. And this is so frustrating when dealing with the English or playing against the English. And for all you English mains who do enjoy this Civ, I'm not sorry by saying this. Your ability to turtle frustrates the hell out of everybody.
Should I do you a favor?
Sure.
You.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay, that
I
might have been
guess
a
I'll
little bit
allow
harsh.
it. I don't really.
That might have been a little bit too harsh.
I'll allow it. I don't have a choice. You already said it.
Yeah.
So. But Mista gonna be able to attempt to mass up. I was expecting a little bit of a men-at-arms rush going in to that southern side of the Ottoman base, but the Ottoman base does have a little bit of an onion layer. He does have some palisade walls and does have a little secondarily that little bit of onion layer down there. Sipahi finally gets something going, taking down a couple spearmen, taking down a men-at-arms. Super valuable for them. Military count 36 to 32. This is quite interesting out of both players because, again, I'm thinking Mista was going to get aggressive once he hit the fast castle, but there's a lot of staring at each other here.
There's a lot. I mean, it's a very passive macro game, right? It's kind of what we've devolved into at this point. We're just chilling, nobody's making a move, everybody's just turtling up, and it's just kind of fine and peaceful before the storm, right? Because the second we start fighting, the fighting will not stop until someone taps out, right? It's gonna be really hard for someone to give up before they take the middle or lose. Because that's the matter with this map, right? It's regions. When you run out of gold in your base, which is 2 small gold veins, so when you've gotten 8,000 stone, you have to move out on the map.
Oh, you're exactly right, Cow. And I was just going to say that myself, where you get to a point on this map where turtling is very disadvantageous for you. The gold runs out, the wood lines run out. You've got to be able to get out there and go. And both of these players, it just seems like they're attempting to get enough mass that if they do venture out, they're not going to kill themselves and they're not going to go down 1-0 because their mass got wiped. And this is very important, especially for an English army that does not have as much mobility as the Ottoman army does and the amount of Sipahi that they have.
Yeah, and we slowly see the turtle shell is opening up and some are moving out. TheMista looks like he's preparing to get a keep drop going as well. We have RecoN here upgrading this tower with the springline placement. See if we can find anything of value here. Both players slowly making their moves on these stone veins.
Yeah, I think RecoN is doing a better job, especially in the middle where that gold is, and just shoring up some kind of defenses, right? And just trying to make fortified outposts, hopefully try to get a keep going. I think for the English, that seems more important to get a keep down just for that network of citadels bonus. And this is why the English are as good as they are on a map like this, because there is one focal point where they can build their keep, they can get their network of citadels bonus, and continuously fight under it over and over again, because those gold mines, they're not moving. So the fight's always going to be there.
It's always going to be there. It's like the lurking feeling that you don't know really what your opponent is up to. I mean, RecoN's still trying to put on some pressure here. Doesn't have too much of an insight into the base of Mista here. It almost looks...
No, and I think for the Mista's base, this is probably the only quote-unquote soft point in that base is over on the eastern side, because there is a little bit of an economic soft underbelly around that after you get through the 2 palisade walls. But this is why walls are so strong in Age of Empires in general. A little bit of raid from Mista on the west side, not going to be able to catch a Vil, but this is why palisade walls are so strong in Age of Empires, because you have units that aren't that mobile, like the spearmen, right? The Sipahi are trying to take down some of those walls. It gives them enough time for the spearmen to get there, that defensive unit to get there, where any other structure is not able to do that.
I mean, it speaks more into AoE4, right? Because AoE2, everything is a wall, practically speaking.
Right. Yeah, you're exactly right. Where in AoE2, the buildings are walls. Fortunately for this game, not so much. There's dark, tight alleyways to get through around some of your other buildings. Mista going to be going with a keep. RecoN going for more of the sacred site play. This is not something that you usually see on regions, but RecoN taking both sacred sites, while the Mista has exactly 2,400 food, as you pointed out. and had over about 2,000 gold, and he's going to go with the Berkshire that, again, we're going to see for either the second or third time this stream. I can't quite remember, but we're going to watch it shoot arrows from a different dimension.
And this, I was about to say Mista, right? I would have preferred it a little bit further forward, right, to secure up one of the golds, but Mista knows about this tower. He knows there's a tower there and knows exactly perfectly the range where the Berkshire will be perfectly out of vision. He can sneak it up, and then it's a big surprise for RecoN when that goes up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there were 3 or 4 spearmen over there on the eastern side that were trying to take down those Sipahi. Just way too many Sipahi, but Sacred Victory is starting to approach for RecoN. I mean, I understand the middle of the map is more important, but now that both of those sacred sites are capped, we have a couple more points of interest that can be around this map. Mystic be going up with the network of citadels as well. And now I think as the English gets to that Imperial Age, now he's looking to take some fight. He's looking to do some damage.
Slowly but surely getting to that point, yeah. It's gonna be a little bit tough. We missed a little bit too far behind here, it feels, before he can take a fight. However, a lot of that military mass that is on those numbers is actually all the way over here for RecoN. It's going to be, looks like he wants to burn down these houses. Could be nice to burn those down, just be a little bit annoying. Still no fight in the middle either, so he's kinda just chilling. Just vibing, getting all his upgrades. Enclosures, of course, getting through.
Yeah, and this kind of takes the brunt off a little bit for the English. Those 3 gold mines that are in the middle of the map aren't necessarily life or death too much, just because of the fact that enclosures exists, right? So he's able to get that little trickle of gold income even if his gold mines do run out, which is super important, especially when you're trying to maintain pop cap. Super important just to make sure you have that little bit of a gold trickle for the units that you want.
And we see here also Mr. trying his best to return the favor a little bit. Some of those shattered arms. So you could find something, but we see the Berkshire just shooting back and saying hello. And well,
yeah, the Berkshire, the only building that you don't have to have on your screen, just watch its arrows go. The Berkshire is not on my screen as Cow is observing, but I'm seeing arrows flying from the north.
Wait, where is it? Oh yeah, there it is.
What a insane structure. It's just a force to be reckoned with. And remember those age-old, when English had enclosures and they were as powerful as they were before enclosures got nerfed, we never saw the Berkshire. It was always Wingard, because you were able to just sit behind your base, get trebs that were pretty much for free, or about 100 wood. So you didn't really need to worry about map control in terms of getting wood, and then you just slowly crept up and killed your opponent. To be honest, Mista's kind of playing that same way in Imperial Age. He has a keep. He's going to be building a keep with a lot of villagers. He's putting some trebs behind it, and he's just going to systematically creep up and deal with the Ottoman defensive structures, deal with the Ottoman army, and continue to make RecoN back.
Yeah, Istanbul Observatory. I know a couple of people right now in Twitch chat is that I personally know is definitely molding right now, but I personally actually believe the Istanbul Observatory quite decent of a landmark. Especially in these games like this, slow, steady games. The Seagate Castle won't be doing too much here. 1 gold win has been secured up for each person. As we saw, that tower did go down with a sprinkle emplacement, but the keep barely not in range.
And honestly, while this game is going into Imperial for RecoN, and we're about 24 minutes into this first game, this feels like King of the Hill a little bit, doesn't it? It just feels like that middle of the map is so very important. Those spearmen, little caught out, not where you want to be. Men-at-arms over there on the eastern side, going to be able to force them to backtrack. Really good idea by Mista having all of those outposts in different areas just to make sure he has some visibility. Whenever there's an Ottoman or any kind of Ottoman army coming, he's going to know about it.
Yeah. The CPI as well could be very useful. We do have a couple of hand cannons now out for Mista. No Janissaries out for RecoN, what I would like to see. Definitely just personal bias. Some great bombards coming out from RecoN as well here. Would be what the kids would call very cool. Unfortunately, I mean, it's a a very strong but very slow unit to get out. We do have a couple of raids here for RecoN, putting on the pressure a little bit. Sees that a couple of stone walls gonna go up here. Can't do too much about it. Sipahi raids will continue going on though, as these men-at-arms will be running away. Just causing chaos as much as possible.
Now, I mean, this also begs the question, as Springles from RecoN are actually going to tap that trebuchet and turn that to firewood pretty quickly, but Springles are going to be costed their lives just to try to take that out. I think Roller Shutter Triggers is completed for TheMista, and I'm not sure if it's completed for RecoN.
Well, both actually has it completed.
Okay.
So he's able to take those very long-range fights here. It's going to be a little bit more sneakier. I mean, trebuchet as well, right? It's slowly but surely trickling down this keep. And if this goes down, RecoN doesn't have a lot to fall back on, right? I mean, if Mista's keep falls down here, it's like, oh no, I need to fall back to my 2 keeps on my Berkshire.
Right. It's like if Mista does lose that area, there will be only a small amount of ground that are lost, right? It looks like some English units were caught out in places where they weren't supposed to be. Spearmen trying to get a little bit of a raid. Mangonel has a different thing to say about it. Getting its rocks off, killing a decent amount of spearmen, or at least getting them at half health, while RecoN on the other side trying to get some kind of raid going. It just looks like, just because of how many defenses are over here in the middle of this region where those 3 gold mines are, both of these players have kind of the same idea of just trying to go around them.
I mean, why make it hard for yourself, right? We do have this Springle micro in the middle here. RecoN unfortunately losing out on that one, trying to see if he can get some of these villagers down here. Too successful just yet. Just gonna go for round 2 as well. Keeping used to produce a couple Springles. Does not have a cannon replacement, but does have the networks of citadels at least, so these units shooting extra fast as the keep does go down for RecoN. And that is a huge defensive structure. These towers not upgraded, just here for vision, just immediately popped out as well.
And I would say, I mean, honestly, I would say the vision is more important. You could see, not only with those outposts going down, no vision, so he's not able to backtrack those villagers. Mangonel's getting some decent shots off, staggering the formation from Mista. It looks like only the south end of those longbowmen and those spearmen ended up getting some damage, but longbowmen are continuing to fire with that network of citadels. And you got to think, too, those Springolds fire with the network of citadels. Having the ability to do that means you need a lot more Springolds to take them down. Mangonel's going down at the drop of a hat. 3 or 4 of them going down. Spearmen making up the front line, while RecoN has only Lancers and Sipahi. That's not what you want running into Spearmen. RecoN is going to get pretty cleaned up here. Meter goes down. There's no more sound of music. Movement speed or range defense not going to be able to help them. The longbowmen are just back in front, picking off these villagers like it's target practice, Cow.
Because they are target practice. They're naturally moving as well. We had the fight here, right? Siege superiority for Mista was so easily established with that network of Citadel Springled, and that's gonna be it. RecoN taps out, realizes there's no more gold, no more siege, and that is game number 1 in the series already.
I'll tell you what, that's a frustrating game for RecoN. I'll be honest with you. It felt like from minute 4 or 5 that RecoN, like, okay, I'm just saying, if it were me and I was playing as the Ottomans and that stuff was happening to me, I'd be so tilted. I would tilt off the planet for this one. But it's only one game. Gotta remember, only one game. Mista does take the 1-0 lead on RecoN. Had a good Civ matchup on that one as well. So maybe into game 2, we might be seeing something a little bit different. As we'll take a look here, we are on the driest of Arabias for game number 2. Malians versus Ottomans, the 2 newest civilizations, going to be butting heads against each other. And honestly, for the Malians, I'm surprised how much Mali we saw so far this stream and this Saturday.
Yeah, I feel like Mongols has kind of just taken the place of the Malians, right? Everyone was pretty confident that, like, okay, Rus and Mali is just going to be permabanned. So people didn't actually practice Mali that much, and then people was like, okay, wait, people has practiced Mongols a lot, so let's just ban Mongols instead because they're just more annoying. So now Malians is being let through a lot of the time, and people haven't practiced them, so now you it's like, yeah, you can pick Malians, that's sure. But if you don't have all the practice needed, then it's gonna be a little bit hard.
And you can't really do the age-old broken Malian things, right? You can't do things like make 30 warrior scouts and win the game. You can't go fast castle and Farimba someone to death, right? You have to come up with some kind of new strategy and an idea to go and lean into more passive income, which obviously the Mali do anyway. But when you lean into it into things like cattle ranches, which we didn't really see, in the past seasons of the Malians, we would go warrior scouts into pro scouts and you would get your deer, and that would pretty much be it. Use that food just to get villager production, use the gold for the Farimba, bing bang boom, that's a win. We'll see you next game. This one, not so much. Your bovine brethren are being saved and going into cattle ranches instead of being used for just food. So I don't know if the Malians have 100% have been solved in this current meta or in this current season, trying to figure out what's good for them and what's not. But I don't think in Call to Arms, and somebody in chat will probably have better knowledge than I do of how well they've played during the Swiss stage.
We can check. I mean, just a small shout out to AoE4 World. They have been tracking all of the games and putting all those statistics up into the the check. And if you do wonder, what was your question again, so I can set up the answer properly?
Oh, I was curious to see the win rate of Mali in not only the actual tournament, but just in general in this season.
In Call to Arms, Malians has been played 93 times, and they have a 40.9% win rate. The worst out of all civs.
Okay.
So, in other words, kind of bad.
Yeah, I mean, 40% win rate is, not ideal. You at least want a 50, right? At least you could make it a coin flip in a vacuum, right? But it's wild that, because I know I make a lot of these suggestions that, or a lot of these callbacks to previous seasons, just because you remember what the previous metas were, and how much you played through them and the stuff that you dealt with over and over again, even from season 0 metas, before ranked was even a thing. But you can see that, especially with the balance of the civs, the introduction of new civilizations, it just, no meta, like there's not a repeat. We don't see repeat metas. There's always some kind of balance shift. You're always seeing different civs that are on top. This one, Roos is on top. Praise be. So,
you're not biased at all, by the way.
No.
I think, I don't know. I'm trying to think, like, what is the closest thing to a repeat we've had? It's, I don't.
Bro, I still remember when Spearman didn't brace.
Oh yeah.
For some civilizations.
That was.
Oh man. Playing against, because like before I started playing with Roos, I would play as French. Because I like knights. I like knight civs. So playing against someone like an HRE with Spearman that can't brace, oh my god, it was a lobby screen win.
Yeah.
Like there was nothing you could do about it. Just for right now, guys, the reason why we're going into game 2 and you're hearing us belabor and talk about 2021 Age of Empires 4, mostly because I'm leading the conversation, but secondly is the fact that RecoN is taking just a small break, and then game 2 will be coming your way very shortly, so you won't have to hear us for too much longer.
Well, you have to hear us for like a couple more hours, I guess, but you won't have to see us.
All right, you don't have to see us.
Yeah, that's a big thing. But yeah, like that's the thing as well, right? With that I like about multiplayer games instead of just regular sports. It's the meta shifting. It's the balance changes. Like, you can always say, like, oh yeah, but football has had some introduction of some rule, like the offside rule and all this kind of stuff. But it's not, like, game-changing, like a patch. Like, just a patch that changed the amount of a cow cost, for example. changed how Mali was played. And it's, I mean, for me, that's kind of why I like esports more.
Well, I mean, that's why the games stay fresh too, right? Just having that different meta, you're learning different civs, you know, and all that. Not to mention, later in the year of 2023, we're going to get some more civilizations, which are going to be fantastic. Love seeing pictures of things like the Byzantines and the Japanese, two civilizations that were very, very sought after by the AoE4 community. People that know history better than myself. I like to think I'm a fan of medieval history, but other people know a lot more than I do, and they think that those two civilizations are where they need to be. And they definitely need to be in this game. And I'm glad they're going to be coming in for the next season and definitely shake up the meta a little bit, because these two new civs that we're going to see in about a minute, Mali versus Ottomans, there's something that we've seen for months now. You want a new civ, you want to change it up a little bit, get a good change of pace.
But I feel like, okay, so I come from League of Legends with casting and stuff like that, and come on, just Twitch chat just flinging at me, but it gets also to a point where new civilizations kinda just doesn't do a thing anymore. Because you can, like, you have to keep on being creative, right? You have to be creative with how the civilizations work. We had the Malians, right, with the pit mines. Very creative. You had the Ottomans with military school and passive military productions, very creative. We already see a repeat in mechanics, right? Malians introduced stealth that will now be reused in the Japanese to a certain extent if things go as Reddit say. So there's always a point where it's like, okay, you should probably just change stuff. And I'm very happy that the devs took their time with reworking, introducing, like, for example, the Ghazi Raiders, the Keshiks for the Mongols, because it really, really helped freshen up the game without releasing new civs.
And to freshen up this stream, how's that for a segue, ladies and gentlemen? I'll be here for the rest of the evening. We're back here for game number 2. Coming in here, Mista with a 1-0 lead, but his opponent, RecoN, will be playing as the Malians on the western side of the map in the color blue. His opponent, TheMista, previously aforementioned, spawning in on the eastern side, playing as the color red and playing as the Malians. Going to be going with that military school, and I really like this against Mali.
Yeah, this is super great, right? You can put on pressure, you can be annoying on those pit mines ASAP. And that is just the joy of it.
Right. I mean, that's the most important thing. Military school, you get that up as soon as possible. You get that spearman hitting the books. You send it out to that pit mine over there on the western side, which RecoN did get fortunate with the spawn. As we take a look over there on that pit mine, it is behind the town center. I should say the town center that RecoN starts with is betwixt Mista's town center and the actual mine itself.
I mean, RecoN has a really, really safe spawn here, though. I mean, look at where the gold is. It's... You have 2 walls, and all 3 of your initial golds is just safe. There's one here, one there, and one there. And then you just wall here, wall down here, and, well, you're pretty damn safe from Ottomans. The issue is getting to that point.
Right. That's exactly right. And for Malians, it takes a little bit of time for that passive income to actually really start flowing and generating. I mean, obviously he's doing a little bit now with the pit mine, but once he gets to Feudal Age, he will need some cattle ranches. He will need to actually make those cows in the first place. So TheMista has time to have a wood line that's not getting raided like he did to the Ottoman player last game. So he's going to be able to get the wood resources. He's going to be able to get the blacksmith and all of those military production buildings that he needs. And it might be quick enough to stop the Mali before they get on that passive train.
Yeah, and it's gonna be a little bit rough as well, right? Because RecoN can't really do a whole lot. Like, he can go jab throwers, which will be taken out by Sipahi, archers, Sipahi, spearmen, Sipahi, scouts, warrior scouts, maybe, but still Sipahi.
Yeah, I mean, the Sipahi is probably the best unit that the Ottomans can make in Feudal Age, right? And it's such a strong raiding unit, especially when there's a lot of points of interest that the Mali have with the pit mines, with the cattle ranches, with, you know, all of the different resource nodes that they like to stay affixed to and stay there. So having Sipahi to be able to migrate into all of those different resource nodes is super advantageous, and especially for Mista with that APM. That's just so damn high.
But not only the move speed, it's the fact that they can just pop that 50% attack speed and then just like those houses disappear. And it's so annoying for the Malians to have to go out and rebuild them and rebuild them and rebuild them and just keep track of them. It's so annoying.
Oh yeah, they could absolutely go to town on those with the, and also, I mean, it makes them such a powerful raiding unit, right? If they do fall into a wood line, or if there's villagers that are trying to build a pit mine or something like that, it would give them the ability to. But Mista will be going up with the twin minaret, as the Ottoman players usually do. RecoN on the other side, Mansa Quarry at about 50% completion. I think it's really important when you're playing against the Ottomans. I mean, you will be getting a blacksmith, obviously, and military production buildings. We're still trying to kite these deer around. It worked once. Why are we doing this?
I don't know. Not even getting the sheep. Poor little one. So, we have to see here. It's not going to be too much of an action right here now. We do see sometimes actually Ottomans, they've started gravitating more and more towards the second town center. And I'm not sure how I feel about that against the Malians. Like, you could theoretically do it, right? Because you get that double town center, or you get 2 town center, match the cow boom a little bit, and then you also have the eco bonus by the military schools. But I'm not sure if it's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand why people would want to do that, but again, it delays some of that early aggression that the Ottomans are really good at doing, right? So I think it definitely depends on the matchup. You know, TheMista doesn't seem like the kind of guy who wants to get that second town center right off the bat. He does have 2 villagers on stone, but what I would assume that stone being for is just that little extra in terms of military school production, making sure he gets enough of them to pump out as many units as possible. Did switch his military school to Sipahi, so now those cavalry will be hitting the books. And then we'll be adding archery ranges. Figuring out whatever that first building is for the Ottomans in terms of military production is super important, because then you know what to build.
Yeah, I mean, we have those Malians, Donsos already out here. Super annoying against those Sipahi. It's gonna be a little bit tough to get in a couple of raids here, but you can still, you can outmaneuver those Donsos, at least when he can't throw a spear at you.
Yeah, that is helpful against the Donzos having that ranged attack, but Mista doing the right thing, going with the archery range. Right next to it, doesn't necessarily have the blacksmith yet, but I'm sure he will eventually. But now it's 6 villagers on stone. Now I'm thinking town center.
Now I'm thinking town center. I mean, with the fact that a blacksmith hasn't been dropped either, right, just yet. Could definitely be dropping that and get those faster passive production. I mean, it's still starting to smell an awful lot like a second town center in here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really sure what scent you're picking up. It might be stone and, I don't know, spackle or something, but town center probably does look like it is available. Malian's trying to get that passive income going, so they're going to put down some walls, which is obviously advantageous. It seems like the good move for them. Mista only has a military count of 6, so can't necessarily do too much in the way of economic damage, but he could do enough to pressure the Malians just to kind of get him off kilter.
Just get him a little bit on the defensive here, as we do have that second TC shortly coming out here. So 2 military schools, still just chilling in the back here, just producing those units, being annoying with the ones that is already out on the field here.
And again, that's one of the really nice things that the military schools provide you. They provide you tempo in a time when you otherwise wouldn't have that tempo.
Yep. And I don't know, it feels a little bit weird, right? Because you can't have the tempo too much when you have that 2 TC, but you are the Ottomans, so you can have a little bit of tempo still. Because of just 3 units.
Yeah, I mean, TheMista is very interested in making this more of a longer game and to go more economic. Match RecoN in terms of the economic building that he's trying to do. RecoN doing a good job of making some units just to make sure he's safe at home, adding some javelin throwers with his Donzos, which seems to be the build that the Malians go for in Feudal Age nowadays.
I think even though if you still want to go for the Farimba garrison, I still think you actually should go for just a couple of cattle ranches and just have them in there, because they're still free passive food, right? And in the late game, they're really, really strong still. Even without that plus 20 per cattle. What I would like to see, though, still from RecoN is like a wall up here and walling in those pit mines, right? Because he is moving out on them, and he should recognize, and I think he already has recognized the ease of walling it, right? But where do we go from here? Does Mista want to fight in the Feudal, or does he want to go up to the Castle Age?
I mean, it sounds like based on, I shouldn't say sounds, it looks like based on his macro and having 7 on gold, especially for the Ottomans at a time when you really don't need too much in the way of gold, it sounds like a fast castle is what he's going to be attempting to do, which is quite interesting, getting fast castling the Malians when, again, you remember just a few short months ago, the Malians were the ones fast castling you.
Good old times. Not really. Certainly seems like so. I mean, RecoN knows what's going on in the back of the base, though. Is that there's something going on here, and I think he has the same idea as you, right? Ottoman's going for a little bit too heavily onto the gold right now. He's getting a lot of upgrades, a lot of eco upgrades at that. Shortly should be going for those blacksmith upgrades too, it feels like. Just as a defensive, has a lot of units moving out.
And I think if I'm RecoN, that makes my ears perk. You know, seeing 5 or 6 villagers on gold right now as the Malians 9.5 minutes into the game. And I'm glad that RecoN had the wherewithal to push his army out and continue to make army, continue to sit in feudal for just a little bit longer. He's going to continue to punch out those donzos and those javelin throwers where he can really do a good dent into this gold mine and might find other areas of raiding around too.
It's gonna get a couple of villagers for trouble, especially when they run away in the wrong direction. He's able to get 4 for his little trouble there as well. Mista. Not enough gold, especially when all of them dying. 5 villagers for absolutely nothing in return.
And that's so crucial this early into the game. You know, I mean, having 4 or 5 villagers when he made that town center, his second town center on the south side, he made it probably just about 3 minutes ago. That economic lead, that villager lead that he was supposed to have at this point just got sapped by about 8 or 9 javelin throwers, right? So it almost feels like Mista's all the way back at the 7-minute mark just because of those villagers going down.
Yeah, and RecoN is still putting on that pressure, right? Mista still moving, trying to build up a couple of production buildings, dropping a blacksmith as well. And this will shortly drop that MIA, I'm assuming. Right there it is. Just in time. So it won't be immediately scouted out by RecoN, but it should be very clear what the game plan for Mista is at this point.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm seeing a recurring theme, not only in this series, but in the other series that we've watched earlier today, where it just seems like there's no good avenue for aggression. You know, I mean, he sees that Mista's going for fast castle, which means what? He's stockpiling resources. He's not making much of military just out of the military schools. But RecoN couldn't really punish him. You know, I mean, maybe it's because Mista did a good job defensively, it being in his base, making the correct walls and the things that he needed to do. But Mista gets away with this Town Center fast castle scot-free before the 12-minute mark. Now he can start to make units that can do well against both Donzos and Javelin throwers. If the Ottoman player starts to do things like make men-at-arms, it could be very advantageous for him.
And, well, RecoN doesn't have, the Malians doesn't have that many ways to actually be dealing with those pesky men-at-arms. You can always say Masafadi warriors, but they get annihilated by anything else.
I think it might be advantageous for RecoN to actually match the Mista in the Castle Age. Mista does see that, I want to say raiding band, but this is basically the entirety of RecoN's army trying to get in and get shots. Javelin throwers are so annoying at dealing with because you want to use the town center and make sure that the town center is providing that benefit. But with javelin throwers having 3 ranged armor, even though they're slow units, they can sit under a town center. He only lost one javelin thrower, maybe
lost
two.
one.
He doesn't care.
He lost one, and he was under there for how long? It's so
I mean,
rough.
they have the ability to do that just because, and it makes up for their lack of mobility, right? I mean, it's gonna take a while for them to get away from that TC range, but when they are sitting there taking off villagers, you're only gonna lose one or two. Now, RecoN is gonna go with the Grand Fulani Corral. It's gonna be a massive boost to that passive income, and now with that corral, as soon as he's done making it, Cow, you finally have a new home.
Ah. No!
Savagery.
Damn it. We were so close. Grand Fulani Corral coming up though. We're already sitting at a pretty solid income despite not having too much of villagers here, and that's the beauty of the Malians right now. Mista has secured up his position pretty solidly here. Is making those units, and the first Mehmed Imperial Army unit will be coming out shortly with that mangonel, which is a really good way to deal with a bunch of javelin throwers.
Yeah, to be honest, I think this is one of the reasons why the Ottomans have, in my opinion, a good matchup against the Malians, because a lot of the units that the Malians make outside of sofas are units that can get hit hard by mangonels. You know, the Malians do like their javelin throwers. They also like archers just because of the fact they can get poison arrows on those archers. So having a mangonel is a must. And especially back when the Malians used to be making all of those units, nowadays they make a little bit less units. So those mangonels could be devastating.
For sure. And I think that's one of the great things with the new build that the Malians does, right, with the cow boom. It's that you're not locked to infantry. You're able to actually spend your resources on sofas, on warrior scouts, on cavalry. And, well, we already see these raids just coming in here. Sipahi popping that 50% attack speed, and yeah, houses 4 or 5 volleys from a couple of Sipahi, and they're just dead.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice that they only have a population of 5, so it's not going to necessarily cap RecoN. He has enough houses to deal with it, but still very frustrating. That passive gold income not quite getting there. And both of these players, actually with about 15 minutes into the game, haven't seen much in that big fight. Haven't seen a lot of feudal aggression, no Dark Age shenanigans, even though Mista did go with the military school. But I'm thinking the age of peace is going to end on Dry Arabia. Now military count 54 to 42, and you can see that Malian mass of about 35 units. They're looking for something to kill.
They are looking for something. They might find a villager. If it's not careful, goodbye.
Yeah, I really like Mista. And Mista did this in the first game as English. Just have an outpost around.
Yep.
Not a bad idea. If you have a little bit of APM, go ahead, send a villager, put some outposts down. You have an idea of where the other army is. Any kind of information, I want to say in any strategy game, but specifically in AoE4, any other information that you have on your component is going to be better for you.
Yeah, it's one of the great things. I mean, people have praised, and I'm definitely agree with them, right? You can always scout what your opponent is doing in Age of Empires. There is never a question as to what is going on, right? It's like you can always be like, okay, I scouted them, I know what they're gonna do. To a certain extent, of course. You can't perfectly predict everything, but it's quite nice. Ottomans, TheMista, still hasn't used... haven't checked in what the Vizier points has been used on, but it certainly has been used on Imam points. Definitely military school and increased production on those. One thing I do like to see, though, that I don't see very often. I want to see siege crews.
Yeah, I mean, that has the potential to be effective, especially against the Malians. When taking a look at their army composition, you have a couple good mango shots, and it could mean the death of your entire game. Sniped down one of those Sipahi. Mangonel actually just getting target practice on a scout. He's just making sure it's calibrated correctly and was able to take down that scout. And it seems like both of these players, even though they have military masses, they're not quite confident enough to take each other head on.
Just not yet. We're starting to be there. I mean, the armies just measuring it up against each other, right? And we do have a ram now coming in. I think they're even coming out from the MIA, which I know I said it earlier in the stream, but come on.
Hey man, it's never a bad time to add a ram, you know, to one of your army compositions or whatever. And as you can see, Mista, this is one thing that I really like about the
Ooh.
Ottomans. They just add a little bit of everything. And actually, he hit the Janissary button.
Ooh.
For how many military schools he has, he gets 2 Janissaries a pop. So he got a nice little 10 of them. Not necessarily any kind of cavalry unit from the Malians, but TheMista does have enough DPS out of those Janissaries, whether it's Donzos, whether it's javelin throwers, to kind of rip through any kind of unit.
Oh yeah, and not to mention the fact that they can repair these pesky little siege units on the field. It's very handy, especially if you're considering you want to go into a siege battle, which is what is going to be happening here. 3 Springles are out for recon on the fields now. It's going to be finally the measuring composition that we were waiting for. Jav throwers on the field here. A single Donzo is going to be the proud one who did not get the memo.
Yeah, and I think those Springles for recon are really going to be the nail for him. You know, he's got to be able to take down those Mangonels. And if he's able to do that, it might be a victory. Those Mangonels didn't even unpack yet.
No.
Big shot into the javelin throwers. 10 javelin throwers look like they came to go down. Men-at-Arms are making up the main front line. Springles finally getting in to those Mangonels. Looks like Mangonel does get one last Hail Mary before going down. Springles now have nothing to fire on and will end up becoming firewood. Although I do like Mista's front line just a little bit more. I mean, yeah, he has Sapai, he's running into Donzos, but Men-at-Arms are really going to help him against Donzos. He's got crossbowmen, he's got Janissaries for that huge DPS. He is not letting up. Whether he has Mangonels or otherwise, he does not care. Sapai here going to be able to get a wraparound on the western side. Really good sneaky reinforcements there. Those javelin throwers now do not have a front line.
No.
RecoN trying to get a keep over here on the western side. I don't think it's going to get completed in time.
Lord
The Sapahi's ability, they did hit Q. Those villagers go down. That keep at 41-22, probably about 95% completed. This was the fight that was culminating over the past 20 minutes. We were gearing for it. We were waiting for it. And Mista ended up taking it rather convincingly. Military count 78-37 in favor of TheMista. There is no signs of slowing down that Ottoman train.
Absolutely none whatsoever in the Doubt Keep. Took so much damage that RecoN doesn't even have enough stone left over to drop one in the home of his base. The rams that are coming through now, slowly but surely trickling in, should be doing short work of all the cows that are here right now. The Mangonel is just being protected to the best of the abilities. Another Mangonel is going to be out there, going to be taking a shot onto the back line. It's going to be pretty good as the second Mangonel is going to follow that one up too. Mangonel finally dead now. Mangonel still shooting, not being microed away. Rams now attacking the cattle ranches, so going to be able to kill those few that remain. So shortly taking out that food income. And now RecoN does not have any military left, and he recognizes that the game is over.
Yeah, that first battle was so crucial. It was like, we were waiting. we were just sitting here BSing for about 20 minutes. just like waiting for the military mass out of both of these players, where they felt confident enough to be like, okay, you, me, in the middle, mano, let's do it. And
1v1 me, bro.
Yeah, literally. And Mista ended up victorious because of that, taking a 2-0 series lead over RecoN. Mista is on match point starting next game, and it really took down the Malians rather convincingly.
Yeah, and it's so crazy to think, right? Because just imagine the fight. We don't have the replay technology just yet. No promises. If that Springle shot, the first Springle shot, did not hit a unit and actually hit the Mangonel instead, the fight could have been so different.
And that's the difference between some of these players that are top of the top. You know, I mean, Mista and RecoN, people will argue where they actually are in the standings, but they're so good, these players, where you make one mistake and one misclick on a Springald, or maybe they just A-move the Springald instead of going on to the Mangonel. That just made the difference in the battle and could make the difference in the match.
Yeah, I mean, it did make the difference, right? It was the second TC really helped just Mista in general, and I think RecoN was a little bit lopsided by it, right? Because it's like, okay, why would the Ottomans go for a second TC, right? Because you're already there, but it's the way you need to beat the Mali, right? It's just kind of out-eco them. It's hard to do, but you kind of just gotta do it. But we will hopefully have the draft on screen any second now.
Well, we know what the map is going to be, right? Because
yeah,
we're going to go to
actually
RecoN's last home map.
Can RecoN pick Holy Island or Prairie?
I don't want to give the audience false information, so I'm not 100% sure. Maybe he does have the ability to do that. But on the flip side, for game number 3, if he does go Volcanic Island, it's going to be the first Volcanic Island that we've seen today.
It's definitely going to be. I mean, I know some people have some very mixed feelings upon it. The thing that a lot of people agree on, I think, I've heard Tips talk about it, Core talk about it, I've heard multiple people say it's like Volcanic Island. The best civ for it is Abbasid. Ooh. Okay, so RecoN actually picked Prairie.
Cool. Okay. We haven't seen Prairie yet in this
French mirror, French mirror, French mirror, French mirror.
That actually has a good possibility of
exactly. Exactly. Which is why I'm chancing it.
A lot of the times for Prairie 2, the Mongols are usually a good map, but Mongols are banned on both sides. So you got to be thinking about other civs that Prairie is good for. You could think about HRE too. HRE, the reason why they're good is because of the amount of sheep that you can actually get on Prairie. It makes you easy to get into that fast castle stage, right? Yep. So HRE could be an option. There used to be, I remember in Prairie, because it was one of those maps when it just came out that was in the ranked pool, and it seemed to be what a lot of people were getting. And I remember watching some top players play it. And at that time, it was kind of like a triad between Mongols, French, and HRE. And then Malians kind of came into the picture with the broken Malian build, and then everything just kind of went on its head. But that's a rock, paper, scissors in a Prairie meta, you know, assuming that now that the Mongols doesn't exist. However, it kind of throws it away. Maybe HRE isn't the best pick just because Mongols doesn't exist. And French is the only, you know, and the reason why if the Mongolians were there, you would be able to counter the French out. So not really sure.
Yeah, I mean, from casting the Warchief Club a lot, like a staple whenever we've had Prairie in the map pool, it's like you're bound to see HRE versus French on that map. So I would not be surprised, but then again, I would not be surprised if Mista throws a curveball.
Yeah, I mean, in typical Mista fashion, right?
Yeah.
To be honest, we've seen out of these first 2 games relatively standard play come out of the Mista and from RecoN in general. They're playing to their civilization strengths. We're not seeing any, you know, outlandish like a French. I remember the Mista game that was in Call to Arms with the French Fast Imperial into 7 different town centers. That was pretty enjoyable. That was fun to watch. So if Mista does go French, that is something in his repertoire.
What isn't?
Good question. It's a good question.
Losing is not in his repertoire, I guess.
I mean, based on this series, I'd have to agree with you. Now that we're at 2-0, RecoN's back is against the wall. And if we take a look at, are we able to take a look at the standings?
We can.
On screen, are they updated?
They should be. So, we have Group A, we have B RecoN sitting up there.
That doesn't look updated at all.
That doesn't look updated. Maybe if I do this.
Nice.
Nice. All right, so we have B on top there. Just kind of just chilling. He's happy. I'm not too sure he played against, but honestly, no surprise that he went 6-0. You also have to take a look at Beastie Vortex looking pretty solid. Was able to win over certain that you guys saw on the previous mainstream. And then as well on to Lucifer and Demu, which means that Demu is actually one going ahead. And then we have the Group D. Marine Lord Louis MT is at the top.
Yeah, I would imagine. I'm not really sure. Yeah, Puppy Paw is going to be playing Louis MT on round 6. So that's a win and you're in.
Oh, wait, they're playing later today?
No, I believe they are playing currently.
Ooh.
I think that although we're covering the Mista and RecoN, I believe it's Beastie's stream that's doing the other one.
Could be. Yeah, I'm checking the match history, and yeah, they're in fact playing. So that's going to be pretty pivotal. So as you said, Beastie, he was casting it, so hopefully.
Ooh, interesting matchup here on Prairie in this game 3. It's HRE versus Malians.
We set a curveball, and here it is.
Yeah, I mean, Malians on Prairie, you know, not the first time I've seen this, you know.
Not the first, but
I think the last time I've seen the Malians on Prairie, though, it's when people were getting Farimba'd into oblivion.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I've seen it a couple of times, but I can't remember the last time. I'm trying to think.
Yeah, I mean, it's been too long, to be honest. Even on ladder, when I'm playing games on ladder, I don't see Malians at all. To be honest, I think I've seen Malian maybe once or twice, and they have not been very effective. You know, they're so. I'm glad you like that one, Hillberries. Thanks, and also thanks everybody for being here. You know, I mean, even though this is the B stream, this is technically EGCTV 2. EGCTV 1 is currently not here. We are the mainstream. We are 1 and 2. So thanks for being here. Obviously, with Cow, I'm TenFourTim, bringing you guys this very last series. It's round 6, the very last round. One of the very last series that have yet to be completed in the Swiss stage. And then after this, and then after that Louis MT and Puppy Paw series, we're going to know who those 8 players are. We're going to know who's going to be in the playoffs. So there are going to be big matches going to be heading into, I believe tomorrow is when they start, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
So tomorrow, you guys got to stay tuned. Whether it's, I'm not sure if there's a B stream going to be going on tomorrow, but on the A stream, I would imagine not, because there's 8 players. So on the A stream, on EGC TV, you better get locked and loaded tomorrow. We have a potential of maybe 3 games left if RecoN wants to do a reverse sweep. We watched him do a reverse sweep against Kiljardy for the very first series that we played, or that we watched.
Spoilers.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could, if you check the bracket, you know what happened.
Okay.
And now with TheMista having a 2-0 over RecoN, is it RecoN's time to reverse sweep again? I'm ready to find out.
He's done it before. He can do it again. I was quickly just going through my notes, and I have not casted. Last time I casted, I did not write who the matchup was because I'm dumb, but last time I casted this matchup, or sorry, I should be saying Malians on Prairie, was last year. AKA, I've never casted them.
It's great. It's great. Well, now honestly, in about 10 seconds, that cherry is going to get popped, my friend, and we're going to be on to Prairie. Let's get this overlay initiated. I'm so done with stalling at this point. I just want this game to get started.
You know, I have all the power. I can just let you wait.
Just switch it.
Okay. Let's get it going. Prairie, we're here. We are ready. We have RecoN back against the wall. Currently, wrong way around the score here, but he is currently 2-0 down TheMista. 1 game away from qualifying to the playoffs.
Yeah, super important. Mista playing as the Malians in the color red, spawning on the western side of this Prairie. His opponent, RecoN, as the other 2 games prior, will be spawning in as the Holy Roman Empire on the eastern side of the map in the color blue. We will have, I'm going to use a recurring word here, Cow. We're going to have a slobber knocker, okay?
Oh, that was the one you were going for. Okay. I was expecting something very different with you and HRE.
No. Nope, going with slobber knocker again.
Okay. I need to find a catchphrase. Anyways, the reason HRE, we talked about this a little bit in the lobby, why HRE is so popular on this map. You have an absolute... You have so many sheep. We can see how much RecoN has scouted. He's just gone around his base once, and he has 8 sheep. And there's already sheep underneath his town center.
Oh yeah, it's mutton for days, boys. You know, having all of these sheep, it means, especially for the Holy Roman Empire, means you don't have to leave your base. And that's something that the HRE really enjoys not doing. They love being in their base, playing solitaire, waiting until Castle Age, then getting there. Malians might want to disrupt that just a little bit. They do have what's advantageous for the Malians on Prairie. They do have that huge gold mine over there on the south side, so they're able to get a lot of houses and a mining camp down there as well. That passive income is going to be churning rather quickly and starting off with a bang. With HRE on the other side, even though, you know, they don't have to leave their base until Castle Age, they do have to leave it eventually. Because in Prairie, as you can see, in the beginning of these spawns that we see, you know, obviously you have the large stone outcropping in the gold mine. The wood, however, as Cow is so accurately highlighting by the Malian base, is going to be sought after later in the game. You know, I mean, those sheep do run out eventually. HRE does need to do things like do a farm transition around their Aachen Chapel if the game ends up going that long. So wood usually becomes an issue.
Very quickly. And we can see here, right, you have a lot of straggler trees around your base. That's good and all, right? So you have at least that, you have your initial wood line, and then... I'm trying to see here. The biggest wood lines you probably exist is 2 tiny small ones that is combined together to make one small one. That's it. So, the wood-heavy civilizations, for example the Rus, Mongols, can be played, sure, but the Rus is gonna have a really hard time because you can't utilize the Gremlin, you can't utilize the extra wood drop-off that you normally get. So...
Yeah, it was such a difficult Rus map, I remember back in the day. Trying to play Rus on Prairie and just suffering because of the fact that there wasn't that much wood. You couldn't get a good hunting cabin. You had to venture out to get some of your resources and especially venture out to go woodline over and over again. So you couldn't get aggressive earlier in the game. It was just super frustrating. Malians, though, they don't necessarily have passive wood, but they don't necessarily need a lot of it. You know, they make their production buildings, they make sure they get their cattle ranches, and then a lot of their units might not take a lot of wood.
I mean... So, I think, like, Malians has, like, a landmark that only needs gold?
Yes, we're talking about, again, getting Farimbud. I think for the Malians, it still could be a valid play. And I definitely don't put it past Mista if he wants to go with Farimba Garrison. I'm curious to see what he actually chooses to do. In Castle Age, on the flip side for RecoN, we kind of had an idea of what he was going to do. He's going to continue his villager production, and I want to see over at RecoN's base, does he even have any military production buildings?
Surprisingly, and he's just going to have a couple of spears there in anticipation of potentially... I could see some Sofas Warrior Scouts. Could be a realistic option to try to deter the HRE a little bit from their fast castle build. It's not going to be the case just yet. We already have the Malians moving out on that second pit mine.
It's not a bad idea to do that for RecoN. Getting a barracks, adding a couple of units. I'm glad he isn't going for a completely naked fast castle, because the amount of nakedness would break Twitch's terms of service. But also, make sure that he doesn't have any defenses on a gold mine that's rather forward. So just having 1 or 2 spearmen, just having any kind of military units at all is going to be beneficial.
Yeah, the tower's going to come up as well, just as an extra layer for protection if, you know, some jav throwers, some archers are going to be there. something that is...
I do remember when the Farimba garrison was the Farimba garrison, and I remember casting this match against Malians and Holy Roman Empire, where the Malians, the Farimba was just better. You know, like you could, when you do a matchup that the Farimba garrison was able to get up in like 7.5 minutes, whatever flat, whatever the actual time was, it just, the tempo swing that you would get from Farimba garrison was just way too much. Now, in Malians in September 2023, we're not seeing that. It's 6 minutes into the game. Mista's got some cattle ranches.
And this would be unheard of before, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, this would be 100% unheard of.
And we can see here as well, right? The tree line slowly but surely being chopped through for both players, since getting thinner and thinner. RecoN happily sitting underneath his base, preparing himself for that burger drop. Okay.
You know, I say this while casting HRE over and over again. If you let HRE do HRE stuff, you're going to lose the game. And this is what RecoN is doing. He got that Regnitz Cathedral down. I think it was 6 minutes, 38 seconds. He actually hit that.
Yeah.
The villagers will be going out to try to get that boar, believe it or not, on the south side. I mean, he does have a decent amount of sheep. But he will be using the spearmen to kind of kite it, I would imagine, and the spearmen will be taking the brunt of the hits. Hopefully that villager will be able to back out of the way eventually, and it does. Okay, that's fantastic. Jeez, it put me into sing-songy mode. I thought that villager was going to go down.
I mean, Jigglypuff would be happy. I know there's been, some people in Twitch that has been begging for a song, so...
But yeah, like, I wasn't even in the right key when I did that the first time.
Yeah, that's reasonable. But the thing that's worth noting, right? The insane timing that RecoN has on this Regnitz Cathedral. With a barracks, and with 2 spears as a protection, and with a tower. So it's a lot of resources kind of just going down the drain into other things except going to fast castle. Yet he still has a super fast castle here. He's gonna get like 752? 751 timing.
Yeah, and it's a great timing. He's going to be able to pump prelates out of that Regnitz Cathedral. And now that we are watching the HRE in Castle Age, let's find out where some of those relics are. You can see them on the map. I think there's 2 really good ones for RecoN, definitely. The one to the north is obviously safe. The one to the south is going to be a little less safe, but will be able to get picked up. And then, actually, I think there's about 4 relics he can get, especially because Mista doesn't have a single military unit.
Well, could go Warrior Scouts. It's not gonna
Oh my
happen.
god. I'm so sick of hearing you say Warrior Scout, dude.
Warrior Scout, Warrior Scout, Warrior Scout,
so
Warrior
tired
Scout,
of it.
Warrior Scout. Alright, but anyways, I mean, we'll have to see, right, where Mista decides to put a little bit of focus. Wait.
I love this idea. I'm going to be honest with you. I think this is fantastic, going land snakes, because think about what the Mista's going to make and what he actually just queued. Musafati warriors, because for the Holy Roman Empire, especially in Castle Age, they want to make armored units, right? They usually use knights for map control while they're getting relics. They usually use men-at-arms with their heavy maces and their 2-handed weapons just to try to deal with a lot of the Feudal Age units that other civilizations make. So Mista goes into Musafati, which you can't blame him for. But at the same time, with RecoN going land snakes on the other side, those Musafati are going to get cut down like these trees we're watching.
He's gonna see the Landsknecht and be not very happy. And I think RecoN now, with those Musafati attacking the spear, I think he's very happy. Still doesn't want to reveal his trump card just yet, though.
No, and I mean, he doesn't necessarily need to, right? I mean, RecoN is picking up...
I mean, he's going so hard into Musafati.
Oh, yeah. And he's going to... Yeah, I mean, I would imagine he would continue to, right? There's no reason for him not to, because he hasn't seen the land snakes yet. He doesn't know whether this unit is. The only thing he sees is spearmen, and he's like, well, Musafati, you know, he can handle spearmen. Spearmen can't really do much of anything. So he's going to be able to take that. Now, RecoN knows the Musafati are coming out. Going to keep going land snakes until proven otherwise.
Yeah, and his scout. Here, just tracking, making sure that a prelate will be killed on the way home.
Look at those Musafati on the western side. They're stealthed. That prelate, not that it would run anyway, But that prelate had no idea he was going to get crept up on. Now the land snakes are coming in from the north side. Those Musafati have to back up. That's another safe relic for RecoN. He's got 4 of them.
I don't like the position Mista is in. I really don't like the position. And Marine Lord with the second raid today.
Oh my god, that was the second one. Or as we would say in France, duh. Nailed it. Thank you, Marine Lord, for the raid for a second time. Welcome the Marine Lord, the other Marines. I don't know what you call your fans. But welcome in. 2-0 TheMista heading into game 3 in a rather precarious situation against RecoN and the Holy Roman Empire with 4 relics. And we're looking to wait and see how this is going to translate over to that military powerhouse that we know the Holy Roman Empire could be. But Cal, if you're taking a look on the top right part of your screen, he's still hoarding a decent amount of resources. I think we're going to see a quick Swabia.
We're gonna see that Swabia. And well, those Landsknecht are doing pretty well against these Musafati warriors, sprinkled as well in a relic tower. Doing some quick work, even villagers getting in on the action, because it's so fun to... Actually, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to continue that sentence for TOS reasons.
Yeah, please don't. I would appreciate that. A couple Musafatis going down. That land snake sword actually has a 6-foot distance and took off one of those Musafati warriors. Palace Swabia going up for RecoN, and it was actually clicked up before the 12-minute mark. And I will say it again for the people in Marine Lord's stream who might not have heard it before. Letting HRE do HRE things means you're going to lose the game. And I think Mista might be on his way if he doesn't do some damage soon.
Yeah, it's going to be kind of bad here, Musafati warriors. They are sneaking their way around, seeing what they can find. They're going to find a relic Springle Tower. So, won't be too happy about that, I think.
No, I mean, if you want to take a look and hover over that outpost just to show the kind of things that it can do, 54 damage with a Springled because of the nice little relic that is inside it. And it does have increased amount of range as well.
Oh,
Swabia is up.
Never mind, I still get spotted.
Swabia is up. Mista's looking for some damage. Maybe he might be able to park himself and wear that Swabia just so those village printers don't start printing. But it will be very soon. Landsnake's continuing to be queued by RecoN. He's got about 9 on the field of 26 Musafati warriors. Think about these Musafatis. Yeah, they could stealth. Yeah, they're quick, but they're squishy. You know, in terms of a raiding unit, they don't deal well with a lot of the defensive structures that the HRE like to make. Things like arrow slits and spring arrow upgrades, and actually bombard upgrades now that RecoN is in Imperial Age. One of the most important things that an HRE player can do, you get some of those outposts, you get some of those bombard emplacements. It's very difficult for Mista to do any kind of damage here.
You just see them just evaporate. Griot Bara, in fact, coming up now for TheMista. Not too sure as to the reason why, though. A little bit fascinating for him going Imperial. Could be getting access to those Musafati gunners.
That would be quite interesting. Having Musafati gunners. This is actually one of the quickest Mali Imperial Ages that I've seen in some time. And it makes sense. I mean, you're going up against an HRE that did play solitaire for the first 14 minutes of the game. So you know that they are in Imperial. They're basically playing single player. Mista, on the other side, wasn't really affected too much either. Because if you're playing solitaire, you're only focused on your own base. It means you're not focused on the other base either. So he was able to go up and get his passive income and the things that he wanted to do. Now he'll be going up with the Griot Bara. And man, we've got a heavy-hitting, long list of festivals ready to get onto this prairie. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, so since it's so rare, we actually see this landmark. Just a quick rundown now to what it does. You get access to 3 different festivals. Food Festival increases food gather rate by 50%. The Military Festival increases military unit production by 50%. And Siege Festival, which increases every damage of battering rams, bombards, trebuchets, and torch damage by 50%. So you are very, very quick at taking down some of the buildings.
Yeah, I remember hearing when the Malians came out and the Great Bara was brought up and about all of the different festivals that it has. People were thinking about landmark sniping with that siege festival, which I guess has the potential still to happen if there's enough Malian soldiers with torches. But you did hit the nail on the head for Mali in terms of their army composition. We are going to see some Musafati gunners, and they'll be able to shred land snakes as long as those land snakes don't get in range.
Yeah, the second they get in range, however, it's gonna be a little bit of a problem.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, it's just, you know, you just don't get there, right? You just try not to do that, I think. That's my expert advice.
Yeah, and it's really weird to see, right, as well, with the Malians, with the Mista, with both of these teams, or both of these players' composition. They're food gold heavy. There's barely any wood being spent, and for good reason, right? Talked about it earlier, there's barely any wood on this map, and the little wood you get, you need to be using into buildings, production buildings, houses, the likes of that. You can't afford to put it into military units.
No, and I think those Musafati gunners, if I remember correctly, they are quite the expensive unit. You know, I mean, if you take a look at them, 110 food, 130 gold. So it's just about, I mean, in terms of total amount of resources, it's like a knight, right? You have your 240 resources. So they're going to take a while to actually make. And the fact that they're 35 seconds, they take a little bit longer as well. So it's giving RecoN the time to get that villager boom from the Palace of Swabia that he so desired because of that quick Swabia. Economic count 93 to 57 in favor of RecoN. And I know that Mista does have passive income. He's got the cattle ranches with the corral. He's got the pit mines. RecoN just has almost double the villagers. So we're going to see who wins.
Why isn't archer range selected? Like this... Okay, that's better. Yeah, so each one of these is bringing in 110 gold, food a minute. So it's a lot of passive gold. If you look at this, I don't think he has a single villager on food right now, and he's still clocking in at 1,300 food a minute.
It's unbelievable, right? I mean, I feel like he will need some villagers on food at some point if he's trying to, you know, continue to sustain production. He has a population of 111. So it's going to take a while until he's actually capped. But Mista doing a good job with this map control that he didn't necessarily take. It was just given to him, you know, because the HRE is sitting behind its base and doing the economic things that it wants to do. So they're going to take the sacred sites. He's able to put walls down, as you can see on the south and north side, those snake-like red lines on your minimap. Those are walls of the Palisade variety. So it's going to take a little bit of time. If he does get all of the sacred sites, he might just make RecoN come out.
Yeah, let the turtle come out of the turtle shell as well. I mean, you can see here, right, slowly but surely running out of wood in the back of his base. And some of the wood that is here is supposed to be the connect. And ooh, stone walls coming up, in fact, here. And the turtle shell is extended.
Yeah, because I mean, for RecoN, yeah, he has to go out for wood a little bit. And he will have to go out for stone, but he does have a nice safe stone outcropping next to his hometown center, so it might not be very soon. But he has wood, or he has food, excuse me, in the Aachen farms. He has gold in the way of the relics, and that starting gold still hasn't been taken away. So RecoN, I mean, he can stonewall, he can sit back here for a while. Super good idea for Mista to start that sacred victory timer. You've got to put this guy on a clock.
Yeah. One thing I want to say, though, one thing that is definitely a little bit useful. I feel like Mista should just pop the food gathering festival. Like, just pop the food festival while nothing is happening. The cooldown for using one, I think, is 3 minutes. So you need to use it wisely, of course, but it's rarely a case where you actually need to use any of the other festivals, so you can just pop the food festival when it comes, get a huge boost because you get so much passive food income.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily think that's a bad idea either. I mean, for 300 gold at 1,200 food per minute, it's definitely advantageous because of how much food that you're getting if you're increasing that by 50%. It's essentially paying 300 gold for 600 food, if my math serves me correctly.
Yeah, it's I mean, let's not do math on stream. Let's instead appreciate the absolute badass Mizufati warriors. I'm sorry, but these guys look so badass.
Oh, those gunners look fantastic. And
Yeah,
look how
yeah.
much attack they have. They have 38 attack, and I'm not sure if chemistry is actually made by the Mista, but Mista now with those sacred sites. Sacred site victory is approaching. 8.5 minutes to get their military strength going by the way of the Mista with 113 in the military count. That's one of the things that makes the Malians so frightening. They use passive income, so they don't need population on a lot of their villagers, which means they can have these massive mangonel shot on the keep, not on the villagers. So the villagers don't end up down stealth by the Mista for those Mustafati warriors.
Oh no, they're barely gonna be spotted out. It's gonna be a slaughter.
That mangonel ends up going down because of that flank over there on the eastern side. Landsnake's trying to get in to take good damage. Mustafati gunners getting hit by mangonel shots. About 5 or 6 different gunners on that western side going to be going down. Surprisingly, the Mustafati warriors, they got caught up with Landsnakes and not necessarily the siege. Mangonel's got a couple good shots off. A couple Mustafati gunners end up going down, but military count 61 to 25 in favor of the Mista. He went in there with 120 different units. You can't think he's going to lose that fight.
That was brutal. I mean, the Landsknechte. Wow. That's like a wet dream right there for an HRE player with those Landsknechte in the back.
Oh, yeah. I mean, a lot of those Mustafati warriors end up going down. And to be honest, I felt for the Mista, maybe some of that micro with the Mustafati. There was a huge flank. That was such a good play. There were like 20 to 25 different Mustafati warriors. They were coming in, flanking around, went south, took down a mangonel or two, and then got caught up on a couple Landsnakes. But Mista, not necessarily trying to go through RecoN, right? Not necessarily trying to go through RecoN's base. He's trying to keep those sacred sites alive. He's trying to make sure that those sacred sites do not get neutralized, and he's got 6 minutes and 45 seconds until he's able to achieve that, because take a look at RecoN's base as you're doing right now. What are you seeing? Obviously, there's Swabia, you can garrison villagers in there, but look at all these outposts. All of them probably with bombard emplacements. You're going to send all of your Mustafati gunners and your very expensive units and your Mustafati warriors in there? Probably not. He's going to try to do a little bit of flanking over there on the south side. He'll take down that palisade wall, maybe get in on that production. But you're not necessarily going to end the game killing RecoN and an HRE player with such a very defensive base.
It's gonna be so tough as well, right? I mean, Mustafati, as we talked about earlier, right? They do a lot of damage, but they have no armor whatsoever.
No,
I mean,
no,
we can see how quickly they disappear from this tower, to be honest. Yeah, and then a Landsknecht is gonna come in and swoop, goodbye.
And emergency repairs, just in case anybody forgets.
Yeah.
Emergency repairs to that outpost just took a lot of torches, but it's like it never even happened. Defense is actually bolstered for RecoN on the eastern side of the sacred site. This one might get neutralized. And even though Mista did win that battle, that first initial battle, RecoN was able to reproduce his units a lot better than the Mista did. Mista, at the end of that fight, it was a couple minutes ago, he had 65 different units to RecoN's 29. Now they're even. Somebody is producing better than the other, and I don't think Mista's the one who's doing the best.
I don't think so either, because the Mangonels is gonna get some decent shelter off on the Mustafati gunners, that's for sure, as there it goes. Not taking too much damage, has those chemistry upgrades coming in as well. Now Rams are attacking the keep, however the issue is emergency repairs are not available all the way out here, I think, so it will go down in the end. However, can he hold this long enough is the question. I don't think so, as the Mustafati gunners taking so much damage. We talked about it, they do really well against the Landsknechte, but once the Landsknechte is on top of them, goodbye, sweet prince. Just look at them melt, and so does the hopes of the Mista, because he will give the first game over to RecoN.
Man, I'll tell you, like 2 minutes before that game was called by the Mista, we're talking about how good of a move he had, right?
Yep.
We were talking about how well he flanked over there on the north side with the Mustafati getting rid of some of those mangonels. It was a convincing win. for him in that fight. Take a look at that military count. Look how high that military count was. Drop down, recons drop down just about as much, right? But the difference is, look at the incline afterward. Recon gets back to the same amount of units. Mista only gains maybe about 10 to 15. So that little bit of lack of production is what eventually costed him. I think he would have had the ability, if he was able to produce as well as Recon did, I think he would have had the ability to hold it.
Yeah, I think so too. It comes down a little bit. I don't know. Someone could probably check and tell me, but I don't think the Griot Bara was ever used.
Oh, geez. I'll be honest, I mean, we're the professionals here, but I wasn't paying attention to that.
I don't think there's I don't even think there's an icon like when the Kurultai or landmark or something like that. So, but it still is pretty rough, right? It was a really, really strong flank, but it was an unfortunate launch connect that just felt like RecoN was one step ahead of what Mista was trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, RecoN played solitaire, right? HRE did the HRE things, and that's what happened. 2-1. Mista still has a lead. Game 4 now on Volcanic Island. Has seen a lot of firsts in this one. Got some Prairie, got some Volcanic Island. Maybe the Roost gets played. Who knows?
Could be. Could very well be. But
I'd like to think it's a pretty decent Roost map. Anything with that little bit of water is going to help you. You know,
I mean,
honestly, big Lodya fan. This guy.
RecoN Rus versus Mista Abbasid seems
has a potential as well.
Seems like a plausible thing.
For everybody who is still here while we're waiting for the civilizations to be determined, right now it just says, you know, to be determined. Thanks for being here, everybody, as we're part of EGCTV 2, part of the B stream. A stream was here a little bit a while ago, but now we are bringing you the very last series of the Swiss stage to Call to Arms. It is the Mista, it is the RecoN, if you are just tuning in. And I hope you stick around for the rest of the series and the people that have been hanging out through the duration of this. We've been casting for about 8 hours now. And if you've been hanging out with us for all 8 hours, you don't actually get anything, but you have a special place in my heart that you've happened to listen to me for 8 hours, because nobody really does that. Now on Volcanic Island, we have the Chinese playing against the Abbasid dynasty. No Rus, big Sag, but Chinese a pretty good pick on this map too.
Interesting. I mean, I understand a little bit of the idea behind the Chinese here. I just don't see the execution against the Abbasid. Because the Abbasid will naturally be going for their docks, right? One of the big things is to, for the Abbasid, right? They have cheaper docks. With how the map spawns on this, or how Volcanic Island spawns, it's, you often have these tiny ponds with deep sea water very, very far away. So it's not beneficial for you to actually make, it's not beneficial for you to make a bunch of fishing ships and like have them go basically halfway across the map and then come back to your dock, which is why the Abbasid dynasty is strong on this map, right? You can place down multiple docks, they're half cost, make a couple of ships, go on to the next pond or the next area where there's deep sea fish and do rinse and repeat. The Chinese will probably just try to out-eco them on land and just do a death push at some point, but it feels like the Abbasid just... Against the Abbasid, I don't feel like you can. Because we did see this earlier, right? We did have Puppy Paw versus Lenok, where Puppy Paw had a really, really strong position as the Chinese, but the Abbasid is just able to hold so well.
Yeah, no, they absolutely can. And we saw, just like you said, in that game before China versus Abbasid, we saw that Zug new push, which kind of petered out a little bit, didn't it? I mean, obviously with the Castle Age, but now that we're about 2.5 minutes in, and usually we do a lot of stalling, but how about we have a little bit of history that goes on in AoE 4? So let's talk about Chinese and Abbasid, right? You might be thinking Chinese, they're all the way over in the eastern side. You know, they're all the way over in Eastern Asia. The Abbasid dynasty or the Caliphate was over around the Middle East. you know, kind of at that area where Saudi Arabia is, in that area, that Middle Eastern peninsula. Did these two ever actually meet each other and ever actually fight in real life? And that answer is yes. And I'm going to tell you, that was a rhetorical question, Cal. I'm actually talking now. Sorry, I'm kidding. Rising Empires with a party of 29. Thank you very much for the raid. We are in EGCTV B stream. Say that 5 times fast. But anyway, back to the history lesson. Anyway, they did come up against each other, and the battle was called the Battle of Talis in 751 AD. Baltoon has it. He got it at 751 AD when the Chinese in the Tang dynasty matched up against the Abbasid dynasty. And during their golden age, which was around the time in that particular area, the Abbasid dynasty was able to stop the Chinese from spreading west and taking more territory in the westernmost areas of Asia. So for your little history lesson today, let's see if TheMista is able to do that against RecoN's Chinese and take a series.
Hopefully will. I mean, what was there? I mean, okay, this is a follow-up history question. Was there a lot of trade between the Abbasid and the Chinese? Or was there just war?
I was not expecting a follow-up question, so I don't have an answer.
Well, shoot.
That was the piece of history that you got, and
okay.
You could all take it.
bad teacher.
Ingest it. I don't know what to tell you.
Bad teacher. Didn't read up on the subject.
No.
I mean, no,
yeah,
I don't think
Shorkin in chat says Silk Road. I don't know, probably.
Was the Silk Road Abbasid and Chinese, though?
Anyway, 5 seconds into it. History lesson is over. Do not forget, because there's a test on Monday, chat.
Oh, no.
We're initiating our overlay. And we're getting into game number 4. 2-1 lead for TheMista, but his opponent, RecoN, playing as the Chinese in the color blue, spawning on the eastern part of the map. His opponent, which has been his opponent for the past 3 games, is TheMista, playing as the Abbasid dynasty, spawning in the western side in the color red. Quick dock by RecoN, playing as the Chinese. The Abbasid will be soon to follow. And I'm going to be 100% honest with you, Cal. I don't think I've ever casted a game on this map before.
Oh, all right. So it's practically a little bit like Hideout. I was about to say Hide View, but that's not a map. I guess if you combine the two. Somebody could probably do that. It's a little bit like Hideout. You have a huge chunk of wood in the middle, and where there once was a remain of a volcanic outburst in the middle, a little bit of an open area, which, well, it's a dream spot for the ruse here in the middle. But the map is a little bit interesting. You have these huge ponds. Sometimes they are connected, sometimes they're not, which is, again, why the Abbasid is so good on this, right? Because, remember, the Abbasid 75 wood for a dock. And when you see how far away these deep water fish is from each other, you quickly realize that having a single dock is not that beneficial, and you want to have multiple to utilize them as much as possible.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Abbasid dynasty is going to be the one civilization that's going to help you out in doing that, right? Because your docks are going to be that little bit cheaper. So you're able to, you know, spread your wings around this volcanic island, make a bunch of docks all over the place. RecoN as the Chinese, maybe not so much.
So we already see, surprisingly, TheMista dropping a second dock already, just really wanting to soak up as much of this deep water fish as possible, and it's really strong, right? Deep water fish, one of the best food sources. It's an infinite source as well. But behind all
you love that. The little bit of regeneration from deep water fish. And what's nice is just because you have a little mix of the deep water and the shoreline, you can go to the shoreline for a little bit, let that deep water regenerate. Then you're able to go back to it if you have the micro and the wherewithal in order to do that. In this map, what I'm noticing from Volcanic Island at this point is just because of this large forest in between of both of these main civilizations, and the fact that both the Abbasid and the Chinese, although they're good at, they're good at doing things like getting a naval situation, getting their fishing boats, that kind of stuff. This seems to be like almost like a hideout 2.0. Does it play like that?
It somewhat plays like that as well, right? You don't have the same explosion and the same stall game, right? You can try to wall, but it takes a long time to actually like rotate around, and you're still pretty close. So you will see definitely in this game there's some reminiscence of how hideout is played, but it's not exactly hideout.
Okay. Yeah, I can notice that. I mean, obviously with a little bit of water, it's not like hideout, right? But just the fact that I can picture, and I've done this myself, doing something like a Roos Fast Castle at Volcanic Island with a couple hunting cabins here. Like it's shameful that we're not seeing Roos on this map. It's borderline blasphemous, Cow.
Yeah, it's still a little bit strange, right? RecoN had the Roos available, but the thing that is worth noting, right? It's like, okay, the Abbasid is good on this, and how is Roos into Abbasid?
Ah, that's true.
How,
Right.
like, how, as a Roos main, how do you feel about that?
I feel fine going up against Abbasid, to be honest with you.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of the times, I mean, in seasons of old, I think the Roos would steamroll over Abbasid. Now I think it's a little bit more, even, more so. I don't feel as bad going into the Abbasid dynasty. I'm seeing a lot of Fs in chat, and then there's an almost F. Crackety is saying to refresh. Oh my god, it was a Cow. We just baby F'd.
I don't know what happened. I don't know. I stretched out my legs and I touched the Ethernet cable on my PC. Might be it. But Culture Wing now coming up for TheMista. Looks like he potentially would like to go for some fast castle shenanigans you were talking about.
Yeah, I think it's a solid play because, like, with the other civilization that's all the way across this forest, what are they gonna do? Is RecoN, is our 50 Zugnu gonna show up at your door? No. You could sit there and fast castle. You're not gonna get punished for it. TheMista going with Culture Wing first means he could do it cheaper and even faster. Even though for the Abbasid dynasty, I'll say it for probably the 5th time this stream. If you've been here all 8 hours, you're pretty sick of it at this point. But the minute 45 seconds, whether you like it or not,
Get
to
them
go
both.
up.
No. No, don't tell me. Does the duck go up? Chinese build speed. Villager down to 8 HP. 7, 4. One more.
Mighty infantry strikes again. Who knew that TheMista paid the Gaia around this volcanic island to give that little bit? It's like paying off the refs a little bit,
Yes, to pull in all the villager. That is brutal. That is some brutal downtime. It's expensive as well.
That's so annoying. That's so frustrating. I was honestly if I'm RecoN, this is the most frustrating series I've been a part of. Especially game 1 with that English and Ottomans that just kind of set the tone, been fighting from behind. But now you have a little bit of momentum. Oh my, RecoN, kill the wolf. For God's sake, just kill it.
Just like,
we can't.
It's like the next generation comes there and just like, bonk. Okay, job's done.
But now, I mean, look at what TheMista's doing with the Abbasid dynasty. And you're panning towards all of these. Look at all of the red dots around the island. Look at how many docks he has. He's got about 5 over here, each of them with about 3 fishing boats a pop, making sure he can get that deep water fish. As soon as that Culture Wing was completed, Military Wing popped right up.
Culture Wing coming right up. Tang Dynasty still being here. A second town center barely being dropped by RecoN. While your opponent is going up to the next stage. We have that second town center. It is a Chinese town center at least. So we'll have a little bit of extra defense when it comes to the inevitable Gulam rush that will be coming. The question for me, how long can RecoN hold? Because he will be a long, long ways away from the Castle Age himself. I don't think he can hold those Ghulams forever.
Yeah, that's actually what I'm thinking too. This could spell disaster for RecoN, and I'm not going to try to predict it, but with this second town center, this takes a lot of food in order to continue. To the point where getting that 1,200 food to actually go up to Castle Age, even though you do have your fishing boats, and you do have probably about 8 to 9 at this point on all of your deep water fish. So yeah, you're doing a good job in the economy, but it's going to take you a while to get back to that clock tower because you're continuously spending food on those 2 town centers. So with Mista being up to castle in about 25 seconds, I want to Cow, if you don't mind, I want to pan over to his base just a little bit, just to see if he's got those barracks, and he does. He's got a nice little factory line. He's got an assembly line of Ghulams that are going to be popping out in about 10 seconds, along with a couple camel riders because he's going military wing in Castle Age. Again, just like you said, RecoN's still at about 200 food. He only has 9 on food, which are the boats. He's not putting any other on food. So he's really just sitting here chilling while Mista's in Castle Age at the 8:53 mark. If I'm RecoN, I feel like my alarm bells are going off.
Yeah, I would, personal opinion right now, I would do this, click here, and then click on sheep. And that looks somewhat what he's doing right now, just in a little bit of a more controlled fashion, because he's, what I would say, a lot better than me. But Mista holding open the wall for the time being, allowing those Ghulams to come through. Villagers gonna be getting their shivs out, trying to get rid of the horse.
And as long as that scout can stand there for maybe just another 15, 10 seconds, because I see a red blob moving. It is a spearman, but just having one unit there, having that hole, that even though it's only one palisade wall stretch, it could be a rather gaping hole for those Ghulam to pass through. Spearmen coming in just in time, going to make sure that that wall does not get completed. Villagers have to get vacated from RecoN actually moving north. And I know we're zoomed in on 2 villagers fighting a scout and a spearman, and you might not think this is a big deal, but if you look and pan over to the west, there are the Ghulams. They're looking for a way in. And I think even though they have that little bit of a hole on the eastern side, they're going to barrel down that palisade wall and add a battering ram.
Yep. Now, RecoN knows he has enough room around here, so he's going to be going up with the castle. Oh, barely able to close that one. But he's able to go up to the next stage with the clock tower. So we'll have some siege units that could be going through here. He has walled himself off pretty heavily though, just segmented himself.
But it is going to depend if he's able to mass the units, right? The clock tower is about 50%. It is going to go up, right? Probably at about 11 minutes, 10 seconds. Mista has 25 military units already. 26 now. Half of them being Ghulams. So I think it's going to be difficult for RecoN to try to hold this. Now, I understand the home TC for the Chinese. They do have the hand cannon slits. RecoN does have a decent amount of food and will be pumping out palace guards. But I don't think he's going to have too much to continue that palace guard production, because even though he does have those fishing boats, he's going to run out of sheep right next to his front town center, and those rams are going right for that mill. All of those food villagers are now idle, not using the food that they need to get those palace guards. This is going to be difficult for him to mass.
It's going to be very difficult. He has to vacant, or he has to move over all the way to the berries. Has the berry, has some deers out here as well, but it's super hard. We saw a little bit of a desperate measure here, a junk being created by RecoN just to defend a little bit of the food he has, and it's super important to do so. Ghulam still running around. The only thing that's in queue right now is a couple of palace guards that could be helping him out for sure. But rams here are available. They're just taking down the town center as quickly as possible. Will textiles come through is the question.
I'm going to tell you what, Cow, even though textiles comes in, I don't think a change of clothes is going to save these villagers with how many Ghulams there are. That's going to be quite the issue if he's able to mass enough and actually get into the base. RecoN does have a little bit of siege superiority, though. He does have the nest of bees, which could prove to be very beneficial. If he gets another, maybe another 1 or 2 nest of bees, you might be able to take Ghulams out when they're in packs like this. But you got to remember, for the Abbasid dynasty, they can make siege anywhere they damn well please. And those springholds are going to be coming down on the south side of this map while that palisade wall is just getting bullied.
This is a long, short game. Those springholds taking out the last few remaining villagers. Can't really go for a farm transition either. You could potentially drop a couple. There is some shoreline fish here that you could probably soak up, but you don't rather... Actually, sorry. There's a single shoreline fish with 400 food left. That's about it. Nest of beasts we were talking about is out now. Does really good against these battering rams. We'll be taking out the village first. Make sure that RecoN is pop-capped as well when that fight happens. Palace Guards is here with a couple of crossbows to counter them. Springhill taking out the Imperial official, and this might be the final hold. RecoN still holding hard on in there. The Barbican getting the Springhill in placement. Palace Guards doing pretty well against the Ghulams with a lot of backup for them. Village is here, and he has managed to build some extra behind it as well here though, but the town center is wisely targeting down the Springhills in the back here, but now RecoN has no more military left. The only thing he has left is a single clock tower, nest of bees, and a junk that is on the other side of the map, far away from this. I don't know. I think Mista has done it.
Yeah, that junk absolutely living up to its name over there on the eastern side, not really doing too much. Villagers on that northern side trying to repair that nest of bees, and it might be able to if we pan back, but those villagers will lose their lives as a result. And because those nest of bees can't do that damage, those palace guards weren't able to guard the palace that they just spawned near. Mista is going to be able to take this game in a 3-1 victory, not only for this game 4, but in this series. Mista on that round 6 going out with a bang in a rather impressive display in this game, going up with that fast castle Abbasid 5 dock build order. Gotta love it.
Gotta love it.